anything else. It's one thing to keep these people, on unemployment, and I support that, but there's so little talk about growth, that growing the economy. Obama went to this battery factory this week, and it became a controversy about whether, his support through stimulus money of the development of electric cars and things of that sort is too much government interference. I think we are very, very short-sighted in terms of growing ourselves out of this deficit and getting people back to work, of not thinking very hard about building our manufacturing base, building medical research. I work with a lot of medical researchers in another phase of my life who are terrific bench scientists, but there's no roadmap for them to commercialization. They got a lot of stimulus money from the stimulus package. They're doing great things, but it's never going to see the light of day. Look, Lincoln, as part of the Civil War, essentially interfered governmentally with building the transnational railroads, 40 acres and a mule. During World War II, you had the War Mobilization Board that turned the economy from a peacetime economy to a wartime economy. I don't like the idea of picking industries that will succeed, but I do think the government has a very important role in helping whoever has good ideas succeed. Either helping them with intellectual property, helping them with, this week, big discussions about small businesses can't find financing. And they're 50% of our job growth. A lot of thought has to be given to growing the economy. We're never going to get out of this deficit, especially when you talk about the Republican view of, yes, we must balance the budget, but we've also got to have $600 billion a year in tax reductions for the rich. That's not going to work. But it's not going to work in the best of circumstances unless the country returns from a country that was 41% devoted to financial services of the GDP to a country that returns to manufacturing, medical research, education, and things of that sort. The final point I would make is the part of the recession that's very slow to become visible is what is happening to the states and cities. You may have seen this week, people thought California was in trouble, Illinois is in more trouble. What does that mean? Doubling the size of classrooms, reducing police forces, reducing fire departments. I'm an employee of the state of Maryland. We have hiring freezes, we have furloughs. That's sort of showing its face. It is not only going to add to the unemployment problem, but people who are laid off as police officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, school teachers are going to add to unemployment and only aggravate the financial situation. So we got a lot of work to do here.
Could I add one little point on this? Because I think you're right. Your point about the mortgages you've already stated quite eloquently. But I want to make a little tiny academic dorky point whenever we talk about unemployment. And that is, among the things that are systemically broken and have got to be fixed is whether or not we tell the truth about just basic data. And the whole notion about where our unemployment rate is right now, it's just wrong. It's so that it's not only that we just don't count you if you've totally given up and said, I would like to have a job, but there's just no point in my beating my head bloody against this wall. But also all the people who are working part-time and want full-time work, who can't support families on part-time wages, but they figure it's better than nothing. They at least keep some food on the table. They're not counted as unemployed. They're not even counted in the game. And I just want to make sure everybody understands how an unemployment statistic is arrived at. If you worked 1 hour for pay in the last 2 weeks, you were not unemployed. So think about that the next time you hear that our unemployment rate is under 10%.
George, the question was about, you alluded several times in this panel about stimulus and of stimulus and a fear about getting too deficit crazy too early. Could you just speak to that a little bit as sort of part of this answer?
I think the timing is wrong. on withdrawing the stimulus. When you look at the bond market is forecasting no inflation. When the 10-year government bonds yield less than 3%, they indicate no growth. And therefore, cutting the stimulus, cutting the unemployment benefits, cutting the aid to states which are losing tax revenues and therefore have to cut services and employment, is actually counterproductive, because you can only grow your way out of this over-invested situation. And when the demand comes back, you will see it with the banks lending and interest rates beginning to move up. That's the time to cut back, not now.
What are your thoughts on the abolishment of the Uptick Rule?
How do you feel about the abolition of the Uptick Rule for short sellers? Is that right?
Yeah. No, I think that was a big mistake.
Okay, but you do support short selling. You say that that makes the market more resilient, right?
Yes.
So then,
but short selling is a very good thing. But actually, you have to realize that going long stocks, buying stocks, and going short is asymmetric in terms of risk, because if you go long and you are wrong, your risk automatically goes down because the stock goes down. If you sell short and you are wrong, your risk automatically goes up because the stock goes up and you are more at risk. So actually, selling short and being long, asymmetric in favor of being long. You can be very patient being long. Being short time is against you. Now, with the CDS, this is reversed. It's actually more favorable. It favors the buyer of the CDS because all he can lose is 1 or 2 or 3% that he pays, whereas the seller can lose 100%. So it favors the short seller. And that is what makes CDS a dangerous instrument. And that's why I think you have to use it only by prescription. But I think that generally speaking, the answer would have been to insist that derivatives have to be registered before they can be sold. The same way as ordinary securities have to be registered with the SEC. Now, if you then register a class of derivatives traded on an exchange, you give one license and you can trade it freely. If you want to have a fancy tailor-made over-the-counter derivative that is difficult to understand, difficult to price, then you have to register it individually. And that would have put a tremendous incentive to trade only derivatives that are registered and traded on an exchange. And you could still make all kinds of special protection